Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaské. I'm Levi Rickert, your host. I'm founder, editor of Native News Online. And, we've just celebrated the new year. It's a good time to really assess. A lot of people make resolutions. I'm not really one of those people, but some people have said, I'm going to do my finances a little better this year. So we found somebody who can help out with that discussion. And we have Lorna McLeod. And Lorna, you come from Washington State. You come from a slew of tribes. I'm going to let you tell us what tribe you are.
Yes. As a matter of fact, until fairly recently, I thought I was entirely Swinomish. And then some things happened that I was able to learn more about my heritage. And I found that I am Swinomish, Sauk-Suiattle, Samish, and Kikialis, and Scottish.
Okay.
A good mix.
Good mix. And you are an author of a book. You are a certified financial coach. So it's a good time's good, right? Beginning of the year.
Yes.
Talk about this.
Excellent.
But the book you wrote, Make Peace with Money, redefine your relationship with money, master your personal finances, and discover true wealth. Boy, that's a mouthful. Now, my first question is for you this. Have you always been good with your money?
Oh, Lord, no. As a matter of fact,
tell us about it. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, sure. When I was a kid, Mom and Dad made sure that we knew how to use our allowance. And then as soon as we were reasonably able to start earning money, which is at about the age of 8, they started having us do chores and so forth. And they taught us how to use that. And by the time I was 10, I had a savings account. So until I was about 18, I was actually quite good with money. Didn't have very much at all, hardly any, in fact. But I was good with what I did have. Then I got married too young, married a man who was very unsure of himself and not good with money. And he told me that I was bad with money. So he was 4 years older, so I believed him. And for the next probably 40 years or so, I danced with that conversation. I'm bad with money. And so what happens when you're bad with money, or you think you're bad with money? You behave badly with it, right?
Correct. It's self-fulfilled prophecy, as they say.
Yes, exactly. And then in 2004, for a variety of reasons, my husband and I went through bankruptcy. He had been diagnosed with an illness that his income went from reasonably good to about 35% of what he had been making. I was laid off from my job and we were invested in .coms and our .com bubble burst. So we went from fairly comfortable to needing to do bankruptcy. I decided I was never going to go there again. And I hired a financial coach to help me see how I needed to adjust my life so that I would not have those kinds of problems again. So that if I did have a big problem, like a change in health or a change in job situation, I would have the resources to weather it better than I did at that time. So she looked at all of my financial stuff and she had a couple of conversations with me. And she said these most marvelous words. She said, Lorna, based on what you've shown me, I can see that you are neither bad with money nor bad with numbers. Well, wow, that was music to my ears. Mm-hmm. And so I started, and she said, and I challenge you. For the next 1 week, don't tell yourself you're bad with money. And if you catch yourself saying it, she said, don't say you're good with money because your inner self will argue with you. So don't say you're good with money, but say, I'm willing to be good with money. And so I did that. Well, at the end of the week, I quit it felt so good to not say I was bad with money that I decided to extend another week. And by that time, I'd had enough practice, so I quit saying it. And our financial circumstances really started changing.
So it goes right down to the attitude you have towards it.
Mm-hmm. So
And
much.
then
Yeah.
explain that first part of your book. Let me get it right. Make peace with money. Talk about that part of it.
Sure. Well, I myself, for so many years, did not have peace with money. I observed my parents not having peace with money. I observed so many of the people around me struggling with money. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins, and my friends. And I didn't know what to do. I had no tools or resources to be able to help people, in part because I myself thought I was bad with money. And then when I went through the bankruptcy, the coach that I hired was just starting a financial coaching school to train financial coaches. And I went through it. I was in her first class and became a certified coach. As I started working with people, I realized it wasn't just me, and it wasn't just people in my family, and it wasn't just people in my tribe. It was virtually everyone. And blessed are the people who are not troubled about money. But I found that so many people were not at all at peace with money. And so I started looking to see what were some of the factors that could help people shift from feeling troubled about money to feeling in charge, and ultimately to feeling a greater sense of harmony with it. And so I started practicing that in my business, in my coaching business. And out of that, it became clear I was not going to be able to reach nearly all of the people that I wanted to have this experience of coming into peace with money. So I wrote the book.
Well, what were some of the factors that you discovered?
Just what we've already talked about, what we tell ourselves. So if I'm telling myself I'm bad with money, or a person is telling themselves I can't have money, or people who are rich are selfish, or money is bad, which is different than I'm bad with money.
Correct. Yes.
Uh, so what our conversation about it, our attitudes and beliefs, they influence our behavior, which reinforces those attitudes and beliefs. And we behave badly with money, and then we deepen that attitude that money is trouble. So that's one. Another one is so many people haven't been raised to have basic financial literacy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to handle a checking account or handle a credit card. That's which, as I'm sure you're aware, people get in serious trouble because they don't know how to handle credit. And so it's working with both the beliefs and then analyzing the behavior. And of course, if you're going to change something, if you're going to stop believing that you're bad with money, as I did, then you want to replace that with what? So saying I was good with money wasn't great, but saying I was willing to be good with money. Mm-hmm. And then my coach said something else that was really wonderful. She said, I can see that you're not bad with money or bad with numbers. She said, there's simply a few things you don't know about yet that you have yet to learn. And I thought, golly, I love to learn. Mm-hmm. Some things I have yet to learn. Let me roll up my sleeves. And that led me right down the path of becoming a financial coach. And so those are some of the factors. They're really, I think, the key factors. And then having a goal having something to replace the old conversations and the old behaviors with. And so I work with people with that. And the book, there's a guidance in the book as well. I also wrote a workbook, a companion workbook that is available on my website for free, because I wanted anybody at all who was interested in changing their circumstances with money. I wanted them to be able to take charge themselves. And so I've had person after person after person work through the workbook, whether or not they read the book. They usually start through the workbook, and then they get the book and read it because they realize they want to know more.
Mm-hmm.
But that workbook is available because I wanted anybody, anywhere, to be able to do this work and benefit from it. I can't reach everybody.
Yeah, you can't reach everyone. And I will say this, everyone, whether they like it or not, has to deal with money, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
if you want lights on, you need to be able to go pay your energy company for those lights to stay on.
Mm-hmm.
For your babies, you need to make money. You better have some money to go get some food at the grocery store.
Yes.
But let's take back one layer, and it might be a little sensitive subject, but since we are Native News Online, I'm going to ask this hard question.
Sure.
Sometimes I encounter people who are Native people who are so anti-capitalist society, so to speak. And I hope you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those Native people who think maybe you bought into capitalism way too much, Lorna? I know it's a hard question, but I will say this. I would love to hear what you have to say.
It is a hard question because it points to something that is, I believe, a significant challenge in our Native communities. And that is, in a sense, wanting to not have to deal not only with capitalism, but with the whole structure of the colonist society that has come in and shifted our situation as Native peoples. And so while I sympathize with it and have a lot of empathy with that attitude, in fact, if you were to probe deeply, you might find that I'm not exactly pro-capitalist myself. But what I do is have them look at, okay, so what is it that you want? First of all, you're going to have to deal with money if you're going to live in the world today, just about. I mean, there may be some tribes somewhere that don't have to, but I think it's extremely, extremely rare. So we do have to handle and manage money, and we do have to interact about money with other people. And so it's coming into, how do I want to be with my money? And what do I want my money to do for me? A lot of people have the attitude, and I know I certainly did growing up, you have to work hard for your money. And few of us, I think, have the idea of, oh, I could have my money work for me. Mm-hmm. For many people in tribal communities, what that means is not only how do I take care of myself and my family and my own circumstances, but what is there that I can contribute to or give back or create that will further the work that's being done in Indian country.
I like that answer. And let me ask you this. Who are your clients overall? Like, as a financial, do you work with tribes directly? Like maybe a tribe might set up some personal finance classes so people know how to understand how to handle their personal finances better, or are more individual based? What's your client base look like?
So I have worked a couple of times with tribes themselves. and in both instances, it was courses that had to do with financial literacy. In one case, it was teaching about nonprofit finances and grant writing. In another case, it was teaching the Peace with Money work to people who were just re-entering the workforce. So there's that. And then I work one-to-one. I do some financial coaching with nonprofit leaders that work in the tribal world.
Mhm.
And so that's really fun. It's been so rewarding watching them take hold and take it to a place where the organization is really starting to thrive.
Mhm.
And that makes me very happy. Then beyond that, my clientele really is international, Levi. I wrote the book not to be so culturally oriented as USA mainstream or mainstream tribal, but really what are the key things that people across many cultures would need in order to thrive and have harmony with money. So
Mhm.
I have had, the book has sold in more than 25 countries. It's available only in English right now. I'm working on trying to get it translated to Spanish and possibly one or two other languages. And then I'm working on a second book.
That's fantastic. And hey, I'm going to throw this out. What do you tell somebody who thinks they need to spend every dime that comes into their household? And
Oh,
I think we all know that. They spend all that and beyond, and sometimes they get a nice bonus. Sometimes, often I hear stories of children who were given a trust by the tribe for some tribal per cap money when
mhm.
as a result of tribal gaming, and sometimes it's not unheard of. Some of these kids will get $250,000 when they turn
Right.
18 and have nothing to show for it 2-3 years later. What do
Exactly.
you talk to? What would you tell somebody like that?
Excellent question, Levi. Um, what I would, it's not so much tell them, I think. I would have them look at what are your values? What is important to you right now? What are your intentions in your life? What would you like to have this money contribute to that would have authentic, deep meaning to you? Now, buying a new pickup truck or paying off your house, all of those are very valid things to do. And let's look at what is going to contribute to your physical, mental, emotional, and societal well being. And so when people start to approach the use of their money through the lens of what are my values and what do I intend for it? What do I intend for my life? Then almost always their use of money shows a great deal more forethought and over time wisdom. Um, and if I was sitting across from a young person, 18-year-old, who just had gotten $250,000, I would recommend to them that they pay off all their debt and that they put at least half of it into a savings account that it would be a lot of work to get back into. So that might be another trust. It might be a savings with a retrieve by date or some other vehicle, so that they're not immediately tempted to spend every last penny.
Mm-hmm. And that's what some people, when they want to cash in their 401ks, there's a penalty attached. And I think in a lot of cases, that's probably good that that penalty is there. Otherwise, people just go to it. Uh, so,
Yeah.
so are you a strong believer in having a like a long term retirement plan, or what would you say? Well, Social Security will take care of me in the end, or I get maybe a tribe will take care of me a little bit at the end. What do you tell people about saving for retirement?
I have people look at having a broad base of income for their retirement so that they're not reliant entirely on Social Security. They're not reliant entirely on their 401k or other retirement vehicle that they've contributed to. And they're not entirely reliant on the tribes, because any one of those could change. And yet, if you have multiple paths that you have invested in, either your own money or your time and your intention, then you are much more likely to be reasonably well set when you get to retirement. And I've worked quite a bit with people who were at retirement and were determining whether they were going to cash in and pay the penalty for the entire 401k, or if they were going to take an annual payout or what have you, and looking to see, because their expenses often change when they go into retirement.
Mm-hmm.
They may have less expenses in some area, like work-related costs. They may have more in some areas, like wanting to go on vacation or learn that thing that they had never had time to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or numbers of my family members, when they retired, started going to Native gatherings, powwows. My dad contributed to the DQU University in Davis in the 1980s. He was a farm consultant, teaching the young people how to farm at that time. So, yeah, what is it that you want out of your retirement? And then look to see what it's going to take to be able to be there when you're ready to retire.
Mm-hmm. And I have one last question. And it relates to, and we've all encountered them, and they don't necessarily have to be Native American, but there are some people, and I'm drawn from, I used to do mortgages. I used to be a mortgage banker in my other life, and people would come in with very, very poor credit scores, just all messed up, kinds of derogatory things on their credit report, very little savings, and sometimes, quite frankly, when you give them the harsh lesson that you're not going to be able to get finance right now unless you need to go repair your credit, et cetera, et cetera. What do you tell people to give them hope? What do you tell people who are messed up credit, low or next to zero savings, and they're living from paycheck to paycheck, and even going down to around the corner to get the advance on their paycheck? And what do you tell people like that?
Often I tell them my own story.
Tell them your story. Tell us your story.
Yeah, often, because where I started was I started in a coaching course called You and Money in 1989 with Maria Nemeth, who's a masterful coach. She, at the time that I went into that course, I was about a little over a year behind in my work paying me. They were paying me partial payments rather than full payments, but it was a nonprofit that I believed in their work so much that I was willing to keep going, even though I could barely pay my rent and barely have enough money for food, and walked to work much of the time because I lived only 2 miles from, and just really struggling, exactly what you just described. And so going into that course, Maria had me look at, where are you now? What are your beliefs? What's in the way in terms of your conversations with yourself that could be tripping you up? And then what do you want? And by when do you want it? Well, I couldn't even imagine owning my own home at that point, but I wanted it. And I couldn't imagine being comfortable financially as my husband and I had gotten before we ran into his health issues and my layoff. But what happened is I got a goal, and I got a couple of really meaningful goals to me, one of which I'd wanted my whole life. And I started working toward it. And 4 years later, 4 years after I took that course, I had taken my mother to Scotland, which was my lifetime goal, and I had bought a home. And I had the money to do it because I learned how to pay attention to money and also how to earn more, how to be a stand for myself about it, which I hadn't been, and then how to manage it better than I had. Oh, and by the way, I quit that job.
Yeah. Give up your charity work.
I quit that job. I went on to another, not a nonprofit, but a city government, and then another city government. But I quit that job, but I was a stand for them paying me the full amount, and they did within about 4 months. So it's also advocating for yourself.
Advocating for yourself. So your message to them is there is hope.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even those who have gone bankrupt, and you just recounted earlier, beginning of this episode, how you and your husband had to go. And it must have been very painful, but you overcame that.
Yes.
Look at you now. So
yeah. Can I show the cover of my book?
Sure, most certainly. It's reading backwards.
Really?
Yeah, for some reason.
Okay. Well,
Peace.
they'll get the image.
Yes, yeah. They got the image. Make peace with your money. Okay, it's the name of the book. And Lorna, I can't thank you enough. You could probably come on and do 12 of these things and really break it down. But in the meantime, what I would like to do is invite you back to Native Bidaské, maybe in 3 or 4 months, and then we could talk again, kind of help our people out. Because, as I said, it's the beginning of the year. It's a good time for people to turn over a new leaf, as they say.
Yes.
And so I really, you have brought some very valuable information. And I really like what you said about attitude. And a lot of us need to sometimes talk to ourselves and get ourselves where we need to be, right?
Yes.
Don't depend on others. We got to
Yes.
talk to ourselves and get ourselves where we need to be. And finances is tough. It's very tough when you're in a big deep hole. But yeah, it's I appreciate what you said today. So
great. And if you bring me back,
where can people get your book? On
Amazon. It's available on Amazon, both as a Kindle book and a hard copy.
Okay.
And I'm in the process of writing a second book with Make Peace with Money for Harmony in Your Couple's Relationship.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, and we invite you back. To our viewers,
It would be my honor.
Yeah. Thank you. And Lorna has brought us some very valuable information today, and that's what we try to do here at Native Bidaské, is bring people on who are making news and leading change in Indian country. And from what I've just gathered talking to Lorna, she's about bringing change to Indian country, and in a very positive way. And we appreciate you tuning in. In the meantime, be safe and take care of your elders and take care of your loved ones. Have a good week. We'll see you next week. Miigwech.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another episode of Native Bidaské. Miigwech.